Hi guys, welcome and welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys are well and I hope you guys are staying safe. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to make this gorgeous skirt, and if it sounds like something you're interested in, definitely keep watching. If you have not subscribed, please do well to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. Alright guys, enjoy the video. As the base of the skirt, you need to start with your basic skirt pattern. So you want to have the front on the table as well as the back somewhere, right? So starting with the front, you want to go ahead and draw where you want the panel to be. But one thing you'll notice is I'm drawing from the dots, as you can see, because at the end of the day, the point is to cut out the dot. So go ahead and draw your panel so that it links with your dot. Now the panel is drawn with the red marker so you can see, and I've gone ahead to kind of cancel out where I want my panel to be with the red marker. Right now on the side, if you want, you can go ahead and do another design, which is the slant I'm doing. So wherever I had the red marker kind of cancelled will be like the extra fabric on top or the lace fabric on top, right? And I'm telling how many pieces you will cut. So the panel is going to be cut one piece of that for the panel piece, because that's going to be cut on fold, and then for the other side it's going to be cut, like you're going to cut out two pieces because that's the main fabric. As you can see, I cut out the dot, and that's what I was explaining earlier. So basically for the front, you should have these two different pieces, the main fabric and the panel piece. Of course, you can have more than two if you want to do more designs, and then we're going to have the back piece as well. So let's go ahead and start cutting out our pieces. So I have the Ankara fabric, which is basically my main fabric. I go ahead and lay my panel piece on top and I pin it in place. Again, the panel piece must be on fold, so I have it at the center front. I also want to go ahead and lay the side piece, or the side front piece as well, and this time pin it in place. Now after pinning that, I want to go ahead and pin the back piece in place as well. So go ahead and pin your back piece like shown or as shown. As soon as you're done pinning all the pattern pieces onto the fabric, go ahead and mark out the sewing allowance that you require. On the center back, I require a sewing allowance of 1 inch. On the side back, I require a sewing allowance of 1 inch. At the bottom of the hem, I require 2 inches. And at the top, I require 1/2 inch. So after marking out all my sewing allowances, I went ahead to start cutting out the pieces. So I started with the back piece, cut it out, and of course that will be 2 pieces. And then you want to go ahead and repeat the same thing for the front pieces. So remember that the front piece has been broken down into 2 pieces. So you want to go ahead and add the 2 inches to the hem, or more if you want, 1 inch to the side seam, 1/2 inch onto the top of both pieces, and then 1/2 inch to where they join together, basically. So after doing that, you want to go ahead and cut it out as shown as well. After cutting out the front pieces, the next thing you want to do is cut out the overlay fabric. Ideally, your overlay fabric should be lace or something a bit see-through so you can see the base fabric as well. So I'm using this gorgeous black fabric that's got like holes so it's see-through. You want to go ahead and pin the center front piece, just the first one, in place, making sure you pin it straight at the center front, and you want to cut it out as shown, right? If you've got any other pieces that you want to have the overlay as well, you want to go ahead and do the same thing. But for me, I've only got this piece. Now after cutting it out, go ahead and unpin it, and then you want to go ahead and pin it in place so that it fits perfectly. That is, the actual fabric and the overlay fabric should be the same size. Now do that and then go ahead and hold it in place with pins, and this is so that if you want to sew it down, it's easy for you to sew it down without it shifting. Okay, after pinning the overlay fabric to the base fabric on the center front, the next thing to do is to get the side front fabrics, and we're going to go ahead and pin it on the side. Now you remember that for this one we cut out the dot, so basically when you sew that together on the sides, then you've sewn the dot in place essentially because we've cut it out. So go ahead and join the fabrics on the side, but like I said, because it's a bit of a concave and convex shaped thing, it's a bit tricky, so you want to be careful when you're pinning it in place and sewing to follow the shape. Now after sewing in place, this is what it looks like. As you can see, I went ahead to give it a good iron, and I went ahead to overlock it as well with my serger. So guys, this is what it looks like with the pattern piece. You need to join your pattern piece together, don't be like me. And the reason why we're joining back together is because we need to cut out the lining piece. So I forgot to do that. I should have done that first before, you know, actually cutting out the main fabric, but I forgot. But it's fine, all is not lost, all hope is not lost rather. So go ahead and join the pattern pieces together, and then we're going to use that as, as the pattern to cut out the lining piece. So for your lining, there's no need for your lining to be divided. You want your lining to be like just one piece, right? I'll prefer. And then you want to go ahead and fold the lining and then place the pattern piece on it so that it's cut and fold. After pinning the front lining piece in place, go ahead and place the back piece onto the lining and then go ahead and pin it in place as well. So remember earlier when we cut out the pieces, we actually only cut out the main fabric and not the lining pieces. It's very important to get the finish that you want for this skirt to actually line it. However, if you don't want to line it as well, that is an option. So as most of you already know, once you place the cut fabric onto the lining, you basically use the cut fabric as a template to cut out the lining. So there's no need to remeasure your, measurement. Now, one thing you do notice is at the hem, I went ahead to fold over the lining, the main fabric, and then I just cut the lining exactly where the pattern ends. And that's because the kind of finishing we're doing is the suit one, and the lining is meant to be 2 inches shorter than the main fabric. So now that all our pieces are cut out on the lining, we do actually have to sew our dart in place. So go ahead and mark out your darts, take out all the pins and mark out the dart legs as well. I tend to use this method to mark out my dart legs and then notch out the dart ends, and then go ahead and sew out the dart. So at the front piece, I'm gonna head to sew the dart, and we already did the front piece earlier, so that's all done. Moving on to the back piece, you want to go ahead and take out all the pins. However, remember to notch the dart at the ends and also notch the dart point, right, or the dart apex. So I'm gonna head to notch the dart ends and also mark the dart apex with my tailor's chalk. And I've also gone ahead to take note of the center back area where the zipper will be as well. Moving on to the center back, you want to go ahead and mark 8 to 9 inches from the top, which is what I'm doing. And then from that point, you want to go ahead and also mark 1 inch sewing allowance, right, as shown. And that way you're doing it horizontally. Now from the base, you also want to mark about 7 inches if you have a hem of 2 inches. So 5 inches plus whatever the hem allowance you have is. And what you're going to be doing is only sewing that middle part, because we're going to leave the top for the zipper and the bottom for the slits. You need a slit so you can walk properly. Repeat the exact same thing as well for your lining. So go ahead and leave the top unsewn for the zipper and the bottom unsewn for the slit. Now after sewing both the lining and the fabric, this is what it looks like. Go ahead and place the lining onto the fabric so the right sides are facing each other and the wrong side is facing you, and then match the hem together and sew the hem as shown. Again, you want to make sure to repeat the same thing for the front piece. So go ahead and lay the front piece onto the table, the lining on it so that the right sides are facing each other, and go ahead and sew the hem by 1/2 inch sewing allowance, right? It's the same thing we did for the back piece earlier. And after sewing it, this is what it looks like. So the next thing we want to go ahead and do is iron it. And after ironing it, it looks really nice and crisp. Now let's go ahead and deal with the back piece. So for the back piece, one thing we want to do is close out the slits. And to do that, the best way to do it is to lay your fabric on the table, right, like this. Now you want to go ahead and take one side, and then you want to go ahead and turn the right sides to each other, starting from the very tip, just like the way I held it, and walk your way by holding it slightly all the way down, which is what I've done. When you get to the base, you want to go ahead and pin it in place all the way down, right, and you want to do it just gently and then sew that from there, right. We're going to repeat it again on the other side, so watch closely. So you want to go ahead and take the front of the lining to the front of the main fabric, hold that in place, and then walk your way. If you prefer, you can also pin all the way down onto the end, right? And then when you get to the end, you want to go ahead know where the stitch or the first sewing stopped, and then you want to go ahead and sew it in place that way. What happens is you go ahead and you've gone ahead to sew the slit rather. So like I said, after sewing it, this is what it looks like. Push out all the corners you need to push out carefully, and then you should have your slit in place, right? So the only opening you should have at this point should be your zip opening, right? So this is what it looks like. If it helps, give it a good iron as well. To be fair, you should be ironing after every point. So next, we want to go ahead and fix in our zipper, and I'm going to be using an invisible zipper. So go ahead and sew this in place. If you want a tutorial on how to fix the zipper, let me know and I'll do a tutorial. But as you can see, the invisible zipper is all done. You can't even tell there's a zipper there. However, we do need to close out the zipper with the lining because the zipper was only installed onto the right side of the fabric. So go ahead and close out the zipper, and it's in a similar fashion. You basically want to take one side of the skirt back, and then you want to go ahead and hold the lining part of it so that the right sides are facing each other, and hold it in place, basically just like we did when we're working out the sleeve really. Go ahead and repeat the process for the other side as well. So you want to go ahead and start from the top, make sure the right sides of the lining and the main fabric are facing each other, and pin it all the way down, okay, and sew it in place. After sewing it in place, this is what it looks like. You can barely tell there's a zipper there, but there is actually an invisible zipper there. So we're going to go ahead and join the pieces together. So go ahead and place the front skirt of the front part of the skirt onto the back part of the skirt, making sure the right sides are facing each other. And then you want to go ahead and take only the main fabric starting from the top, and then you want to go ahead and pin it all the way to the bottom where you get to the lining, and then you're going to pin it back all the way to the top where you get to the lining top, right? But it should flow seamlessly. If you've done this right, it should just go seamlessly, which is what I'm doing at the moment. Now, one thing is you want to take note that when you're doing this, the lining, where the lining ends is where the lining ends on the front and back pieces. Go ahead and take it to your sewing machine, and then go ahead and sew it on the 1 inch sewing allowance that you left, if you left 1 inch or whatever you've left. I'm using my Janome HD9 sewing machine, and you guys already know that this machine is a beast. Love it, love it, love it. Make sure to sew the other side, I forgot to mention earlier. And then after sewing the other side, at this point your skirt is all finished, right? All that is left is for you to add the band, which we'll do shortly. Give your skirt a good iron so that it's crisp and all the linings and all the sides and seams are pressed and all of that, right? So the next thing is to cut out the band. Now for the band, I have a general rule of thumb. In terms of the band width, one thing you need to consider is how wide you want your band to be. And if you want your band to be about 2 inches, what you need to think about is you need an extra ½ inch for the sewing right at the bottom. And then because the band is double layer, you want to make sure to have the same thing at the back. So essentially you need 2½ in front and then 2½ in the back, right? So that's whatever you want your band width to be plus times 2 plus 1 inch. That's what you'll have. Now in terms of the band length, I tend to work with like my waist measurement, right? But your waist measurement plus an extra 2 inches at the end of the day. So as you can see, I folded the band fabric into 2 after cutting out the length I want, the width that I want. I folded the length into 2 and I cut out my waist measurement plus an extra 1 inch because it's on fold, right? If it was not on fold, it would be my waist measurement plus 2 inches. Now I went ahead to add like interfacing onto the band just because I want it to be like really crisp and I want it to stand. And then go ahead and fold the edges. This is what I was saying about leaving 2 inches allowance for the band length, and then go ahead and sew the edges on ½ inch sewing allowance. After sewing the sides together, go ahead and trim it off so it's as low as possible, and then turn it over to the right side. So basically at this point I've gone ahead to turn it over, and this is what the band looks like, right? Next thing to do is to fix your band onto your skirt. So zip it down, and we're going to start from the inside, which is where the lining is. From one part of the skirt, you want to make sure the band matches exactly where the zipper is, and you want to pin it in place. And then you want to go ahead and work your way by pinning it all through the insides of the skirt. Again, you're pinning this time from the lining. You want to make sure all the darts match on your skirt, and you want to make sure you pin it in place, carefully. Shameless plug for all of you who haven't subscribed, please do well to subscribe. I've also got channel membership that you can subscribe to. Check out the link in the description box, and you guys will get exclusive videos if you're a channel member. Okie dokie. Alright guys, so after doing that all the way to the end, you should have some fabric left over, about 1 inch left over, right? Now you want to go ahead and sew this in place by ½ inch, sewing allowance all around. And after sewing it in place, this is what it looks like. Give it a good press on your iron, and then go ahead and fold this over onto the right side, right? And as you can see, I'm taking it in, and we're going to go ahead and top stitch it. So I'll make sure this is like close and personal so you guys can see how I do that as well. So when you're top stitching, it's very important that you sew as close to the edge as possible. Just make it really straight, and then just work your way all the way to the end of the fabric. But again, it's very important that you make it like really straight. As you can see, I'm just making sure to adjust it and so that it sits properly before actually sewing it in place. Now after top stitching, this is what the skirt band looks like. Go ahead to sew in your hook and eye using your needle and thread, and basically the skirt is all finished. This is the back of it, and as you can see, what invisible zip. Alright guys, so we come to the very end of this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, like, and share this video. I'm so grateful, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.